Good morning and welcome to this COP District Council briefing for Tuesday, the March 2026, streaming live from the Tangatororia Community Complex. And our first presenters this morning are going to present on the membership of Local Government New Zealand. We have with us Scott Necklin, who is the Chief Executive, and we have Mayor Dan Gordon, who is the Vice President. And I know Dan because he's the Mayor from Waimakariri. He was the former Mayor of my mother and her husband when they lived in Rangiora, and a friend of theirs. So a very warm welcome to you both. If you'd like to come and spread the gospel, we'll hear and listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and to all your colleagues and to the staff. Thank you for having us this morning. We had some slides. Have they been shared? Or if not, we can speak without them. Yep. Thank you very much. I promise you it won't be death by PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Well, again, thank you for having us this morning. Thank you for the warm welcome. So I do know Judith and David very well and got to know them through my Rotary Club in my area. So it's how I got to know you, Your Worship, through that connection, but also your previous Mayor Craig had a lot to do with communities for local democracy, which is an organisation that I helped set up. Largely, if I start by saying largely in frustration at the time when felt that councils like my own and here weren't being heard with respect to Three Waters reform. Never left Local Government New Zealand because I felt that that wasn't really where I felt I wanted to be. I wanted to try and affect change from the inside and to get change which we desperately, well, I felt we needed to see. And so last term, I was elected to the Zone 5 role. So I stood for that, and that covers most of the South Islands, top of the South Island through to Waitaki, including the Chatham Islands. So I've been on the National Council now for just over 3 years. The end of last year, there was quite a change around the country in terms of membership, and we felt with the new National Council there definitely needed to be a reset. The previous president decided to step down with the election result, and so Mayor Rahette from the Gisborne district, she automatically assumed, because she was vice president at that time, the role of president. I was elected from the National Council membership to the role of vice president, and that's something we both have now set, working with the National Council on a new direction. I think it's fair to say we know that there are a lot of, perhaps some of the positions that we had that needed re-evaluating, and we had lost touch with our membership. And so with our interim Chief Executive, Scott, we've been working with the National Council to re-establish what it is that we're for. And principally, we are a peak membership organisation, but we are an organisation that if we forget what we're about and that we're for our members, then we don't have really an existence beyond that which we have a mandate to do. So our principal thing that we've worked on is a bit of an elevator pitch. Very hard to get an elevator pitch where everyone agrees. But we've landed on Local Government New Zealand as the national peak body for councils. We bring local voices into national policy, influencing decisions early and working with government to deliver practical solutions. So when we've gone about setting out what our 5 key points are, we're a peak body with a strong membership. Influence matters most because that's actually where we can be effective in what we're doing. Members lobby us and lobby from the grassroots, and membership is really where our strength is. And LGNZ works constructively with the government, and that's regardless of who's in government. If we don't have strong relationships and can work in a bipartisan way, then we're not going to be effective. And so we know that this is where we've gone wrong. Perception is reality, where we've gone wrong a little in the past. And so we are working our way to make sure that we have had that reset. And so far we've had meetings with all the party leaders, Waitangi in particular. We had a very good engagement with the Minister for Local Government. And we've just in the last few weeks had a meeting with the Prime Minister, and it's very clear from that signalling of a new direction is certainly resonating with the government, and we're starting to be consulted on a range of things that we perhaps were outside of the tent on. And reforms at the moment, as we know, there's a lot happening in our sector. If we don't have an effective voice and the ability to have that conversation with government, we're really not going to get anywhere on behalf of the membership. So that's where we've been putting our emphasis and time. Also, members must always be in the loop. So after our National Council meetings now, we have trialled it, and I think we're going to continue with that, where we have a Zoom feature or a video conference feature either in the morning or the afternoon, because we know that there are varying times for people in their day. But you can come and we will tell you about things that we've been working on, but equally we want to hear feedback from the sector, and we think that that's something that we'd like to see us continue going forward. So perhaps, Scott, if you could come to our advocacy priorities and we just explain those.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks again for the opportunity to come and talk to you today. As interim CEO, I'm very clear with the team that we are a membership organisation, and members actually tell us what to do. So it's the members' priorities that are first and foremost the most important. It drives obviously our work streams. It drives the reason for being. And so with that in mind, as part of the leadership reset, so we had a new board that was formed in December, which Dan has already talked about, obviously new vice president, new president, but actually a whole new board. And late last year and early this year, we reached out to members through sectors and zones and through communications to ask them what was top of mind for members. And so we could then work through a process to understand what the priorities were for our membership, so we could then feed those into our advocacy priorities. So we went through quite a big exercise to get members to feed that into us. We then categorised those. We took them back to the board earlier this year. And then just last week at our All of Local Government, we got the membership to actually vote on the kind of categorisation of those priorities. So what's up before you there is effectively the categories that members have spoken to us about in terms of identifying in order the priorities. So firstly, financially sustainable and cost-effective local government, meeting current and future infrastructure needs. So that came through as the top two. And I think that is the key here in terms of kind of getting back to the basics and the core business of local government. Resilient communities, economies and environments came in at number 3, and a responsive and accountable local government system came in at number 4. So this just highlights, I guess, the shift in terms of our reset to make sure that members actually have mechanisms to feed into us, to tell us exactly what it is they want to do. And then we've got mechanisms with the membership to identify those priorities. And so they kind of encompass things like, for example, new funding and financing tools. So about 18 months ago, we produced a toolkit. It had about 30 funding and financing tools. It was divided into 3 categories. The first category was funding and financing tools that we know the government is interested in, and so we wanted to do some work in that. The second category were things that the government had expressed interest, maybe not necessarily to deliver in this particular triennium, but maybe in future trienniums. And then third was kind of the wish list for what local government might want to do in the future. But ultimately, in our view, it's up to communities and it's up to councils to decide what funding and financing tools they should be able to use to be able to deliver services and invest in infrastructure, etc. So that kind of is that underlying ethos for that. Other things that sit in there is things like cost shifting. So we wanted to make sure that the government was very aware that the services that they ask councils to deliver, that there is obviously a reduction in unfunded mandates, or again, local decision making that can identify how you actually go about funding those services. Ultimately, that's your decision, it's the community's decision. I'm not going to go through each of the four individually, just probably the last one to note is a responsive and accountable local government system. Obviously, that links in with the current kind of government reform, so simplifying local government. Now, our view is pretty clear. We know that the sector is up for change. We had a remit at our AGM last year where 80% of our members identified that they supported change. But our basis is actually that is a community choice, and actually communities, districts and regions should have flexibility over what that looks like. We've lobbied quite hard with the government in recent days. So we had a good hour and a half with Minister Watts. It was a working lunch. We had time with Minister Bishop at Metro Sector last week and the Prime Minister, and they've heard that voice around actually there should be flexibility. So it's actually communities that decide what it looks like going forward, and that reorganisation plan should be informed by yourselves, potentially with the regional council in the mix, or potentially with external advice. But fundamentally, that is a local decision, and they have heard that. They've heard that cry, that call, and have identified that they are very much open to councils coming forward with proposals. And I was fortunate enough to be at the process at Waitangi, where both your mayor and deputy mayor met with some key ministers, and that was very much part of that conversation as well. So that's at a very broad level our advocacy priorities.
And so we've kind of covered on this a little bit with our February meeting with the Prime Minister, and I think this was probably a watershed moment for local government New Zealand, where we really did feel there was a very good engaging conversation and a degree of understanding. And I know from the conversation we had, he certainly appreciated that there has been a reset and that there is a different tone from local government New Zealand, which is one, it's not that, it's not to say that we were completely wrong with everything, but there are aspects of our previous advocacy that clearly weren't resonating with where in partnership where the government saw things to be. So we really want to see that there is a partnership with whomever's in government and to work with them, especially when we've got a very big program of reform underway. We've got to have an effective voice there if we're to achieve the things for our membership that we need to and for our sector. So some of the things that we covered were the cost of living. It's obviously a major item, not only for the government, but for all of us as we're trying to set rates. I'm a mayor of a council. I know exactly how hard it is in the environment we're working under. Simplifying local government was a fair range of conversation on that, as you can imagine. And, you know, we've made it very clear that simply one size doesn't fit all. And really what's best for particular areas needs to be reflected in that. So not necessarily jumping to, in the reorganisation conversation, there's a whole range of things and permutations that may or may not work for respective communities, and to be respectful of that. And the government, to be fair, made it clear that they saw what went well with local water done well with Three Waters reform and what didn't. And so they're very keen in the discussions that we had with the PM and also with Minister Watts that they don't repeat that. And in fact, in the conversation with Minister Bishop, he was talking about coming and talking to us and checking in once they've heard, and submissions had closed obviously only in the last few weeks, to come back and check with us what their next steps are. So we're looking forward to that further engagement. We did Prime Minister rate because it was a topical matter around dog control, which is a big issue for all of us who've got seem to have a fair degree of dogs in my own district. A number registered, a number unregistered. So I fully appreciate the issues that we're seeing in other parts of the country and the very real issues that are there. And he asked us if we could help come up with some solutions. So we quickly took up that task. We realised that what we put in there was very quick in a response, but we did check it within some councils, but in the time frame we wanted to come up with some solutions. And I think it was a 6-point plan of some things that we feel could be addressed, including giving the police a lot more powers than they presently do in some instances, but they were just proposals that we would want to work further around changes if we're to be effective there. There was some discussion around bed taxes as well, and that PM had already made it clear that he wasn't keen on any new taxes this side of government, but certainly keen to see that conversation and if they achieve another term, and he made that clear in an interview that happened earlier that week. We also covered the rating assistance scheme, which I might get Scott to cover a little bit later in our presentation.
So as you'll be acutely aware, there's obviously a number of different reforms. The government announced a number of policy settings, just before we were all heading off to have a Christmas break. That's not uncommon for governments to do that. So the policy team have been very busy providing response on behalf of the sector. So this is where, first of all, we lean in, we seek the views of our membership. We then disseminate those into policy settings, and then we provide draft submissions. So there's a couple of things here. I'm not going to go through each of the submissions in detail, but I look at this very much as a shared service. And so from my perspective, what we do is we commission work on behalf of the sector, so you don't necessarily have to. And so it could be, for example, seeking legal advice, or it could be getting expert advice from economists, etc. We then disseminate that as part of your membership. So we effectively kind of see it as a shared service. We procure that and we supply that. You then have free access to, as a member, you then have free access to that expertise. We obviously then produce a draft submission that's done in partnership with our membership, and then we provide those draft submissions. So if you're then looking at potentially providing your own submission, you can pick up our template, you can put your local context into that, and then obviously do your submission yourself. We are aware that a number of small councils don't have the capacity to necessarily do submissions. So then obviously we're speaking on behalf of the sector on your behalf. So to me, that's very much a sort of a shared service and procurement. And just to give you a kind of a sample of what that can look like in terms of sort of dollar values. So each of our submissions, I mean, we've costed them out in terms of people hours and the cost to actually produce them. And that's just our policy team. And they would cost anywhere between kind of 30,000 to 80,000 to produce, depending on the complexity. And you can see that there are 7 there. I think we've actually done 10 in the last couple of months. So the value there is anywhere between kind of 300,000 at a lower level through to 800,000. In some of these areas, we've produced legal advice as well as advice from economists, and the direct cost of that is about 90,000 plus. So again, that's where we go and procure that. So you don't necessarily have to engage a lawyer. We then share that as part of the membership. So potentially it saves you and your ratepayers money from that procurement. And so, yeah, just wanted to touch on my perspective around this is very much a shared service, and this is where I think, we can provide real value in terms of the membership versus what you get in terms of that direct procurement that we actually do on behalf of the membership.
Influence is a fairly key part of what we do, and we've listed there from our side. It's about ensuring officials and ministers are working with us before legislation's introduced and enacted, and that's where really we've made sure that we're set up very well internally, and I want to acknowledge Scott for his work there, making sure that we have advisors there that actually speak to all sides of politics. So we've got key people there that have got the relationships, have either worked in ministerial offices or have relationship with ministers. And also we've got a policy grunt behind us. So when we're asked to do things, just like we did with the dog control matter, that we can actually deliver and get in behind, or if we need some external expertise, we can bring that in at short notice. I think that's the leadership Scott's bringing, is that we're nimble enough in our in the way that we're able to respond, so we can respond quickly. Because oftentimes with government, things move pretty quickly. So if we're taking weeks and weeks to get back to them, well, they're not going to be interested in our influence and our say. So that's the part I was saying before, is about actually understanding where government's at and us working in together with them so we're effective there, but also to make sure that we've got explainers and pieces to support our members and the things that are important to each of you, and that we're getting those gains that you want to see achieved, and trying to make sure that we're constantly keeping in touch. So our advocacy priorities, which we've set through discussion with membership, don't always stay that way. We've got to constantly flex. The new government comes in, we're going to have to flex where we are as an organisation as well. We've got to be real about that. If we want to achieve the gains we want to see, we've got to be able to show that we're a responsible partner too. It doesn't mean that we get walked over, because that's not where we should be at all. But if we're to be effective, it's about showing that we're an effective partner as well. So I mentioned before, we would seek specialist input and advice from reputable economic and legal experts where we need to show that we've got some good backing behind our thinking. As Scott mentioned before, the in-house expertise to develop submissions and sharing draft submissions to members. And I think that's where LGNZ really does offer a huge amount in that space, and that often for smaller councils and for councils like my own, we don't necessarily have all that expertise on hand. It can be very expensive to seek that, and also to make sure you've got the capacity to be able to respond. Where we can lean in is right across our sector and get that expert advice, pull it together, and then provide drafts to each council. Then you can adopt that or change it as your case may be, and it can be your submission, or you are satisfied with the work LGNZ's done. You can then say, well, we endorse that, and that's our particular council's perspective. So that's the thing where I think leaning in together, we add a lot, and also appearing before select committees who do take the views seriously, especially when you're talking for the sector. And that's where we perhaps haven't been as strong in the past, but we are now, and that we get the fact that being stronger together is making sure that we are representing our entire sector. Sometimes finding the voice in there and how we manage that can be challenging, but it's actually how you reflect that in the submission work that you're putting through to make sure that the voice is, while we're speaking as one, there are ways that you respect where there are different voices in that, but it's how you nuance that and make sure that that's reflected. And I think the simplifying local government piece, I think, was an excellent piece of work, because it did respect all voices in there, but also coming up and saying, well, broadly, the whole discussion about where we're at as a sector does need to be addressed and discussed, and we're not opposed to that discussion, but it's just respecting that there are different parts of our community are at different paces to this, and how we all work through that together.
And just to add to that kind of influence piece, so I liken it to, there's effectively 3 layers of influence that occur on a daily basis. So first of all, obviously from elected member to elected member, so our president, vice president, people on our national council, but we also want to broaden that to our membership base and have the right people in the right conversations with key ministers and opposition. So there's a kind of political to political conversation. We then work very closely through our government relationship team, and we make sure that any government relations team has 2 sides to the coin, so it has a left and a right, and so we set that up late last year. And so their role is to effectively work with the ministers' officials and be in constant conversation with key ministers around policy settings, trying to obviously influence the conversation, etc. And then our policy team work hand in hand with the government agencies, so DIA, MB, HUD, New Zealand Transport Agency, etc. So there's kind of 3 layers of influence that happen at any one time. And often some of the conversations we're having, we actually start them before the policy even becomes or sees the light of day. And Dan will talk in a moment to some of our advocacy wins, but the seismic strengthening one comes to mind. That came through from a remit from the Mayor of Manawatu, And then that was a remit at our AGM. We then spent about 18 months working with officials to change that piece, and then that eased the seismic strengthening requirements, which has saved a number of councils millions and potentially saved a number of private landlords millions as well in terms of the easing of those restrictions. So that's the work that we can do behind the scenes before the policy even sees the light of day.
If it is, and Scott's just mentioned really rightly, the first one is the seismic strengthening requirements. That was directly from Mayor Michael Ford's work, and we supported that, and then we got that through, which has actually made a significant difference. As a council that has had to invest, as we had earthquakes in our area, we're carrying about $150 million of debt from that time, and a lot of that was due to earthquake strengthening and rebuilding buildings. So, and there were a lot of things that were done at that time that needed to be done, but actually where a lot of buildings, a bit more common sense coming into play may have enabled a different way of handling it. I'm not saying I'd revisit that for my own districts, but at least it gives a lot more choices and flexibilities to council in that regard. And I think Mayor Michael Ford from Manawatu did an excellent job there. Also, the building system shifting to proportionate liability radically reduces council's potential liability. That's another, again, that we worked on there. And perhaps the third and most important one I've seen is there was quite a look at how transporting, roading costs and emergency works would be treated during a time of weather emergencies and other things that occur. Well, the work that we did has actually shifted that, because the government were looking at proposing shifting those costs and perhaps removing that ability to get higher rates at times when you do have that. That has now disappeared from the radar, and they're not advancing it this term, and we were involved in getting that shift. For councils like all of us that go through weather events, that would have been a major impost shift and would have added significantly to your ratepayers' impost. So there are three that we can immediately point to that we've had some real gain with, and it can directly point to savings for your ratepayers.
And I think just to add to that is the ratepayer assistance schemes. I don't know if you're on the Herald, but there was an article this morning from Kate McNamara about the ratepayer assistance scheme. So we've been leading for the last 4 years the development of effectively a new funding vehicle, and it's for ratepayers, and it's designed to remove barriers for property development. It's also designed to enable potentially retirees who are on fixed income who potentially don't want to move out of their community, but they obviously are having difficulty paying their rates. So it's a way of financing that in a really cost-effective manner. And thirdly, the ability to encourage people to put solar panels or kind of do home improvements that have a public benefit. So it's not to put in a new kitchen or to remodel the house, but it's where there is a public benefit. So solar panels is a natural one, but it could be water separation, it could be water storage, etc. So we've been working on a financing scheme that would support that and would effectively provide financing to ratepayers at about 1.5% to 2% less than the standard mortgage rate. And as I said, it removes a barrier for housing development, enables sort of installation of solar, but potentially allows people on fixed incomes to stay on their property and finance that at a really effective rate. And it provides choice as opposed to potentially having to move away from their community where they've got obviously connections, or potentially thinking about things like reverse mortgages that are kind of 5 or 6% greater than a standard mortgage rate. So we've been working on that. We've done the business case for that. That's currently with the government, and we're expecting the minister to give us an indication in the next couple of weeks. And so far, the reaction is very, very favourable. So again, that's just some of the work that we can lead on behalf of the sector. We have modelled a lot of that on the very successful local government funding agency, which over the period that it was established has saved ratepayers about $1 billion in interest. And the funding agency are very much behind the ratepayer assistance scheme. And actually, we were actually part of the establishment of the funding agency back in the day as well. So that's the sort of stuff that we can develop on behalf of the sector. Look, lastly, we've kind of covered this, but I just wanted to wrap this up. So as we've indicated, obviously we provide, expert advice for recommission, legal advice, or specialist expertise on behalf of the sector. I've already made the example of the $90,000 one that we've just shared recently. The submissions that we do, we've probably put in about 200 hours over the last couple of months just on those 7 submissions that I listed before. That comes at a significant impost on councils if they were to do it themselves. If they don't have the capacity to do it themselves, then we are effectively doing it on behalf of the sector. There's also access to Arcona, which is effectively our online training platform. Each module in there would be about $800 to $1,200 if you were to buy it commercially. We've probably got about $1 million worth of assets in there, and that's building constantly. And our members have a direct line to feed into new content that they might want to see, and that's a library that will keep growing over the years. And then lastly, we produced a number of guides, so things like the tax guide for elected members, recruiting and managing chief executives, standing order templates, etc. Each of those guides, if you were to go and procure them separately, would be anywhere between $25,000 and $50,000 each. And so I just wanted to kind of give you a taste of the value. I'm very clear we need to be able to demonstrate the value for membership. And I think we do that by kind of looking at some of this as a shared service and procuring, developing these things as part of membership.
I guess that's an important point to just make sure there is good value. Like we've spent a lot of time, Scott in particular, looking at the costs of how we run LGNZ. Are we lean and effective? We realise for a lot of councils they're facing very tough times. We all are with financial pressures. So in particular this year we looked very closely at our fee. The fee was to go up, set to go up by 9.5%. The revision of that, which Scott's found savings. We've moved our building location twice. We were previously down near the Beehive. We don't need to be in a prime location actually when we're delivering how we deliver. So we've shifted there, which has again delivered significant savings, and looked internally at holding costs. So we've got to 3.1% is our proposed increase this year. Also looking at conference costs, where they're at. We're aware of the perception that comes through in some of the feedback. So they're all things that we are totally razor focused on to make sure that we're delivering good value, but also rightly the perception of where we're at. Well, I don't want to do a hard sell on you, but we'd really love you to come back. We all consider you mates, which we do. I love Jonathan's company, always have. Times we've got to know, so we miss you. Various things you're at, whether you miss us is another thing, but we miss you, and we'd love to have you back as part of our family. I'm not saying that you're not part of our family because we're all part of local government, but at the end of the day, that's really what we're here for today. And I say to people around the place, it's well and good for us to sit here chopping our lips at you. Actions speak louder than words. And in the next 12 months, I hope that we can demonstrate to you with this reset and the refocus that we mean business and we mean what we say. We're here because we want to be effective. Look, I've got a busy job as mayor. You all have busy jobs as elected members. I'm doing this because I really want to see our sector strong. And I want to see us reconnected and be adding value. When Local Government New Zealand was at its strength, we can be a very powerful organisation and deliver the things that we need for our members, but we can only do that if we're part of the tent together. When we're separate, we get weakened and we're divided off, and we're well aware of that. We're putting a lot of effort into discussions with Auckland and Christchurch, as well as West Coast. We had a couple of councils there that departed, and we had a very good trip down there last week. So both Scott, myself and Rahesh and the National Council are travelling around to make sure that we are connected, but also having those regular catch-ups to ensure that we keep in touch with where our membership's at. I was really encouraged to read an article by Peter McKinley, who often shares his thoughts and reflections, and he was talking very favourably of what he's hearing and what he's seeing with the work that we're putting in. So we know we've got a lot of work to do. We're demonstrating, I hope, by being on the ground and coming to see you, but also over the next period of time, see where our progress is at. But we'd welcome to have you back in, but that's a decision you will make in your own due course. But we appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you today, and if you have time, Mr Mayor, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, what we might do, thank you for your presentation, is rather than have formal questions, we'll just take we'll take a short adjournment, grab a cup of tea or coffee and have a chat. And you can actually meet the elected members in person and shake hands and say hi and have any questions.
You should do whatever you'd like. Yep.
We might just take an adjournment for 5 or 10 minutes and do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for having us.
Thank you.
No.
We made these boys wait long.
Oh, that's Luke.
Okay, thank you and welcome back. We are heading into the next item, which is the Transport and Emergency Works update with Dion, Baranesh, Blair and Mark. Thank you, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
Morning, Your Worship.
Morning.
Yeah.
Morning, Mayor and councillors. Waiting for the rest to take their seats.
Don't wait, just fire ahead. They're more important than what they are.
No, kick off. Introduction.
Right, well, due to the grandest that I've allowed the LGNZ presenters to have, you now have 5 minutes.
You have 5 minutes.
Morning, Your Worship and councillors. This will be a quick update on our roading works, starting with emergency work. Total sites were around 59 approved. We have completed 37 of them. There are under construction one are 9, and last week we awarded the rest of the 9 tenders, which were extended to the extended EOI. First batch of physical works have been awarded. There were 4 slips, and the last 4 will be awarded this week. We are still evaluating those tenders. Moving on to our targeted fund LCLR in Slay Street. We have 2 designs, one for the rock spall wall, which is already consented, and a hex lock wall, which is already consented. We are looking into a 3rd design, which is an alternative options. We are evaluating that as we speak, whether that will be more economical for the site. I apologize, I don't have a presentation for it.
Can I jump in on that one, Pete?
Yeah.
So the 3rd option, we've got 2 options there. Hex lock and the what we call the rock spalls, but we were providing contracts as an option. There's been a couple of contractors come back saying, hey, we think we could do it much cheaper. What we're saying is, if you want to propose a cheaper option, what you also need to do is package it with a consent. We have a consent which we can use to get the thing built now. If you want to change the design to something else,
You do the consent.
yeah, because we've already paid for a consent. So what we don't want to do is be paying for an amendment to the consent or the risk that it may not be consented. So we're just asking people, if you come up with an alternative that we can't use our consent, that's what V is touching on. It's not telling them to give us an alternative. It's just saying if they propose it, they need to package it with the consent.
Excuse me. If they do realise that and they do get a cheaper option with the new consent, will that cost of that extra consent, you'd expect that to be realised in their account?
Yes.
One of them, is it a Northern Regional consent or is it a consent from us?
Northern Regional Council, coastal structure
Yeah.
that's suitable for pedestrian walking.
Just checking.
Yeah, and also adding to that, that consent after that, that design will be reviewed for the design life. Because initially we did got an approval for a set amount of funding, and there's 2 designs already available. So adding a 3rd alternative, we'll have to go through that scrutinization of the design changes along with what is proposed. Yeah. Moving for maintenance, Dion will be updating you on maintenance.
Yep, I'll take it from here. So morning to all once again, let's get cracking. So this is the report for the road maintenance services for period ending the 31st of January 2026. And as we go, I'll give some relative updates as we go. So during January, obviously, we experienced a tropical storm. We were inundated with a number of call-outs all related to the storm. On the top right of the slide, you can see the pattern over the last 3 months as far as all quantities are concerned. And you can see there that, especially with the RFSs, which we'll get onto a bit later, they did spike up due to mainly related to the storm. Besides inclement weather, the reseal program carried on and progressed rather well. We'll get into that a bit more. We did over 40,000 squares during the short month of January. No health and safety issues to report for January. On the sealed roads update, high level, to the end of Jan, 39% of the reseal program had been completed at the end of January, despite the weather. On the rehabs, Mangawhai and Poto rehabs are fully complete now with the line marking. Design and estimates for the remaining rehabs have now been finalized, and we've got the go-ahead for those, which is great. On the asset management front, collaborating with the KDC asset management team to finalize next year's forward work program, which is done as well. Great effort, combined effort there, and also looking at the program for year 2 and 3 as well. Slips, nothing further to report from our side besides 1,500 meters of sealing that was done along recently, slips that had been repaired. On unsealed roads, we're coming up to the end of the summer dry season, so you'll start seeing an increase in the maintenance activities towards the wetter months. But our unsealed strengthening program kicked in the beginning of January, and which is progressing well. Drainage works. We attended to a lot of the work related to the storm, but we carried on with our maintenance works, 1,300 meters of water tabling completed during the month, as well as 30 meters of new culverts installed. Right, going a bit more into detail of the unsealed road maintenance. So you can see on the top right-hand part of the slide is the areas that received some maintenance, that the roads that were graded during the month of January.
Well, you've been a bit cunning there, very active out here at Tangaroa since the meetings here at Tangaroa. Complain. Yeah.
As mentioned, we kicked in with the metal strengthening program. That's really going well. During the month, we imported 311 cubes of metal, but that increased dramatically over February. 65 kilometers of roads graded. And as mentioned, at last coming to the end of the dry summer season, and with the wetter season, we ramp up our maintenance activities on the unsealed network. Still getting good customer feedback. We did receive 1 or 2 good feedback from customers along the network. And then we've got a list of roads there that we planned as well coming for the next couple of months. On sealed roads, despite the inclement weather, we sealed 42,100 squares during the month of January. We had some additional resources up from Hamilton as well to help us. At the end of January, 39% of the reseal program for this year completed, and current update, we're sitting at just over 55% at the moment. Drainage activities, we were reminded during the storm how important drainage is for the resilience of the network. We can't stress how important this is. We'll obviously attend out to a couple of call-outs with the storm, but during the month we did 1,300 meters of water tabling, 30 meters of new culverts, and a couple of culvert ends cleared. But the main focus was related to the storm and water tabling. We've got a list of roads planned that was done in February, which we'll be reporting on next month. Rehabs. As mentioned earlier, Mangawhai Road and Poto rehabs completed now. Good news, Valley Lawrence design and estimates have been all approved, and we're starting works at the end of this week. Victoria Street, also design, a couple of challenges there. It's finalized now. Estimates have been approved as of yesterday, and we're hoping to get going at the end of this week with actual works. So good. Tukowhai, as a team, we made a joint decision with looking at the actual traffic volumes on that road. It didn't really justify a full rehab. So we opted for heavy maintenance to save some money in our budget to ensure we got enough money for Victoria Street. So we made a collaborative approach there on Tukowhai, and that's also going to kick in at the end of this week. The remaining 2 rehabs, Parorori West and Paparo Oakley, Those designs have been finalised and they put on shelf for next year's program.
Excuse me, that Pepperell Oakley one,
Yep.
is that being totally funded by us, or is there still some main road infrastructure?
I'm not sure about the funding as far as I know. It should all be funded through the council. Yeah.
It's now us.
Now us, okay, thank you.
It was a pre-existing slip,
Okay.
slip, where the rehab is.
Right, moving on to network inspections. During the month of January, we covered 947 kilometres of inspections. You can see all the roads there in green that were inspected during the month of January. And 217 culverts were also inspected during the month, which equates to about 3% of all the drainage assets on the network. I mentioned earlier as well, we were really working closely with the asset management team on just making sure we come up with the best forward works program to optimize the budget, to increase the best resilience we can get out of the budget for the network. And that's really working well. KPIs, just obviously focusing on the ones now that are really relevant to this presentation. Response times, you can see there's response time has dropped in January, and that is related to the storm and just the pure number of RFSs received. And from now, February, you'll see now from next month, those are getting back to the target line. Complaints versus compliments. In January, we received 2 complaints versus 1 official compliment, and the 2 were related to the storm as well. Our local spend targets, we're achieving our 30% local spend with just over 40% for the month of January. And on health and safety, critical risk observations and SPCs carried out the month, we've achieved our target of 30. I can't see there on the slide, but it's just above the 25, it's 32, yeah. All right, moving on to the next customer feedback. On the top right-hand side of the slide, you can see the 3 months trend there. Now you can actually see the request for services that have ramped up from December up to January, and all mainly related to the storm, from 61 up to 124. And then there's a breakdown of all the other RFSs. There's a number of vegetation. Those were also as a result of trees down during the storm. Got a lot of also quite a bit of flooding in Dargaville itself, with 1 or 2 complaints coming in from there as well.
Just on that subject of the flooding.
Yeah.
Was it flooding of buildings, or was it just water levels rose, as you can see there? Did our flatland and roads and culverts and parks take it all?
Yeah, there was just one particular complaint that stood out as the one business owner within Dargaville that gets frequently flooded in a service lane, and that's linked to the tidal, the floodgates on the tidal, the king tide. Unfortunately, that valve cuts off and then it disrupts water actually draining back out. So
because it was you could see it. The brown water was stuff that come up from the rivers through the stop bank. The clear water was stuff that couldn't get away.
that's right,
Because you can't make water flow uphill.
you can't. So
Yeah.
fortunately, that doesn't happen often though. It's just extreme king tides within a weather event that will coincide at the same time.
Yes. But just so there's one business owner whose back area.
Yeah, it did get flooded, and we're coming up with a solution. We're speaking to the owner with the KDC roading staff, so we're dealing with that issue. Yeah.
I don't mean.
Right, the remaining forward works program is basically explanatory for itself. So let's just look the sealed roads. That's the main thing focused now, just to make sure we get the reseal program done. We aim to get it done at the end of March, but we may go into April, pending some good weather. So we should hopefully be okay there. Drainage work carries on as usual, and the rehabs we're all planning to get done by the end of the financial year. Budget, I'm not going to go into all those numbers, but what you can see there, it's sort of summarized as how we've been spending the money from July this financial year through to January, and the remaining available budgets. You can see a breakdown there, and that summarizes it into the next slide. You can see the cash flow envelope. We're within the envelope, and we're on target to achieve our expenditure for the year, and a monthly breakdown detailed on the lower right-hand side of the slide as well. And that concludes the presentation for January.
Over to Blair.
Yep.
Or slips update.
Just covering off, adding some detail to what V was talking about, Bhuvanesh. When we've gone through, we asked councillors to agree to expand. We call it the ROI, Registration of Interest Panel. It was trying to get a lot of these tier 2, tier 3 contractors on board for the slips. Where it's showing through, if I use an example, Hotu Road, which is off Kirakotini, the engineer's estimate was 576 for the slip, and the prices went from 568,000 to 1.19 million. And we're seeing that spread pretty consistently. So these, what we call the smaller, the Donovan Drainage Engineering, the OS groups, the CLL, they're certainly not the big contractors out there. They are very keen on doing work. They're enjoying the way in which we're putting this work out. It's giving them, rather than the traditional high risk, you build it exactly to this and there shall be no variations. They are enjoying the ability to say, hey, if we did this, we could cut some money off this end. They're trying to value engineer the jobs with us, and we're seeing that in the pricing. So thanks to staff, Nick and V have approved those, but there's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 jobs going out for construction now that, well, they've been approved, but it gets those underway. One of the ones that I know the Mayor is very interested in, Cairns Hill, we extended the time frame on that. That's the design build. That was supposed to close last Friday. We extended it out a week, where a couple of the contractors, locals, said, can we have another week to try and do it? So that, what are we now, Tuesday? So 3 days with the same intent to go, and Antley Street's in the same boat. Councillor Canton.
Your worship. That Cairns Road one, that's still on track to be done this season?
This season, yes, design build. There's been a bit of debate. Some contractors literally repriced the schedule that was in there previously. One of them came back at a very good rate. If we'd had that initially, we probably wouldn't have done all this work. We would have just
Go for
it. But anyway, so they've got actually the longest section so far. Councillor Lambeth and then Rogers.
Those small guys that get the jobs, do them well, they become bigger and bigger, and it makes the big guys more competitive. And yeah, it's not our job to grow their business, but it's our job to get the best value for our customer, yeah?
It's got another spin-off. It's building local capacity, because those ones are actually, they're locating themselves here. And when we're looking at pole designs, when we're looking at share keys, they now know how we're doing them and the soil conditions and that. So we're getting a lot less uncertainty or risk pricing, particularly. So if someone comes in new, they have to put quite a large contingency in there because they just don't know. As these ones are getting around and getting more local knowledge, they've drilled here, they know that we're getting a lot more geotechnical information back from them as well. So it's working both ways. Nice one. Councillor Rogers.
I just had a couple of queries from some ratepayers. When you're doing the culvert ends, do you do both ends of the culvert? Because one ratepayer said to me that the whole paddock was flooded because of a blocked culvert, and then when they came out to fix it, they only done one end, and now they're on another wait list to get the other end cleared.
That's odd, because usually we would do two unless we were going down the one side and coming back the other.
I'm not sure, that was a service request, so now that.
There has been so for example, one of the jobs I'm aware of, which is out off Te Kowhai Road, as you go out towards Tinapai, would have come through, but pass it through to Mark and his team. it's where the culvert had been originally laid too shallow, so they tried digging it out with a shovel,
Yeah,
poking a shovel in, but it was never going, it needed either
need something more.
totally pulled out and a new one put
Right.
in, or what they call a jet unit to blow it.
Perhaps that's the case.
Yeah, which road was that, if it may?
Rahutai. And, do you know if there's any planned improvements on Thames Road? I know it's a small road, but, the milk tanker could get stuck there because after there's a few subsidences and, sort of hollow out bits. And then after a service request, when it got graded, then it was sort of down to clay.
It will be picked up, Mark. Mark's about eventually marked.
Okay. Also, I don't know if it's your thing, but I just saw in the budget that there's 30,000 left on footpaths. Is there any plan to fix some of the really haddock pieces in Mangatrodo? There's a few bits that are like very hazardous, cracked and missing concrete completely.
So we have some money which we have parked in our footpath to do minor repairs, but in our next NLTP, so when we transitioned from NTA to Kaipara, nobody basically asked central agency to fund footpaths. That was just a gap which we identified now. So because we are going for our next NLTP funding, which is the next 3 years, you will find that there will be few components, including footpaths and environmental maintenance, coming in to Kaipara. So, yeah,
Okay.
but we are doing minor repairs. So if you can just note it down and we'll send someone to look at the footpath you're talking about.
Yeah.
If there's a particular bad one, we can get to it.
Yeah.
No, someone was said at the top of Bickerstaff Road, and then this morning when I was driving out, I looked and it's like, oh yeah, it's not even concrete there. I think it might be where they put the pipe through.
Mhm.
And then down towards the school, someone said to me, Rate Palace, great to see they fixed the road, but shame the footpath's still slumping off down. But I can see that it's not probably that easy to fix, but on the road to the school.
It can be done. Last year you had quite a section done by the Four Square
Yeah,
in Papara. It's the same issue. It's a very limited council budget,
yeah,
but V and his predecessors have just taken a block there and said, right, that's
Yeah.
90 metres that will get replaced, or
Yeah.
it's 100 metres. Yes.
so how do we go about, just who should I send the photos to of the areas? Just a normal service request?
You do it on Antino.
Just put it on in.
Yeah.
All the, yeah, okay, thank you.
Just take one final question from councillor Tane, and then if we've got any more service request type stuff, we'll just get you to send it through. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just, Blair, I note you spoke about how, the knowledge that some of our service providers have sort of collected during their time working there could, I suppose, in relation to that medium and long-term resilience space, will that help in trying to identify, putting in place resilience programs as opposed to, having to respond down the track?
Absolutely. Probably the key difference that this council's been doing over the last couple of years is putting in, well, one was, which we touched at the last meeting, there's a lot more of those HDPE pipes going in the ground. So they're longer rather than the short concrete ones, but when they put a longer one through, we're actually ending up with one less joint under the road, or sometimes three less joints, which is where the water's coming through. And the other one is we're putting in the deep counterforts, which is the sort of stuff that's taking away these springs. Wherever we put the counterforts, I mean, Devitt's Road is a classic. Where we put the counterforts, there's no more punching out. Where we've done it on, using an example, outside here, Pukahui, you go along there to 9600, a major drop head into the river. There's one counterfort that does a ring around that slip. It hasn't moved.
Oh.
We've done the same on Murray's Road, up where there's $1 million slip. There's one counterfort at 2.5 metres deep. It's taking the water away from that slip plane and it's stopping it from just moving, because every other time we got a rain, it was just kept inching, and it doesn't take that much to create a step that the public get very upset about hitting on a car. So if we can cut down the rate of movement, and this is where these contractors are really helping us, because they are encouraging the one on Colville, which is there. There wasn't a counterfort, and the contractors are the ones coming back saying, can we put a counterfort in? Because it'll cut the cost down of actually putting the piling in.
Okay, awesome.
And adding to that, we do have resilience bank of works. So whenever we identify anything which needs more resilience work, we do capture it in our database for future resilience projects. So, yeah.
Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Good work.
Thank you. We're moving to the project delivery update with Brian, Kim, Haley. Thank you.
Table, item, okay. Projects by funding type split that finance has provided to us, but unfortunately I just received this yesterday, so I'll just.
And will you be able to flick it through electronically as well to the team?
Your worship and elected members. Kim's not with us today, she's off unwell, so I'm going to deliver her report on her behalf with Brian to support. So I'll take the report as read. This is just a high-level update on where we're at with the capital delivery program, and obviously this excludes roading, but we're focusing on overall progress, the key risks, and where council direction or awareness might be required. So as of February, we've got 111 capital projects in the program, and key this month is understanding that we've got a real positive delivery momentum going on. We're seeing that there's been a clear shift of projects out of the early stages and into delivery and completion. So currently there are 32 projects in execution and 30 projects are now in closure or complete. So for context, back in April last year, only 14 projects were in execution and 18 were in closure or complete. So this represents a significant improvement in program maturity. What's driving that improvement? So this shift reflects a stronger program management and better sequencing of work. We've deliberately reduced the number of projects sitting in concept and initiation and focused our efforts on progressing approved projects through to delivery. You might see that there's a small increase in total project numbers, and that's just largely due to child projects being created under existing multi-year renewal programs. So that's particularly in and around stormwater. So that's not new scope being added, it's just existing works being broken down. There's a few, I guess, projects requiring council awareness and direction. So most notable is the Mangawhai Community Hub. So I know that there's a strategic paper around the Mangawhai Library later on today, and also in Tinopai, the wharf renewal and boat ramp upgrade. So what are we looking at? A number of projects are flagged for partial delivery this financial year, and that's mostly due to scope resets, consenting or sequencing constraints, or resourcing limitations. And there's also a small number of projects where budget risk remains. So we're waiting for tender outcomes to be able to give us further direction in that space, and we'll come back here if we need to. So in total, the program represents about $44 million of capital investment, and what we're expecting now is to really get to the last 4 months of the year and start really pushing through to complete all of those projects. Okay, I'll hand over to Brian to talk about some of the risks.
Thank you, Arlene. Good morning, Your Worship and elected members. I'll just run through some of our program delivery risks. Obviously, staffing issues mentioned first. I've got an update on our external, firstly, external project managers are a part of our way of managing the workload, obviously. And we're currently using 5 to 6 external project management companies to achieve that on a number of different projects. Regarding active vacancies, I can give an update. We've managed to acquire a new project manager, and Hopefully, yes, if she signs the document in time, she'll be able to start on the 13th of April. So that's the plan. So yes, that's good news. Managed to fill that vacancy. Radio, just regarding projects, to run through those briefly. Dargle Town Hall or Northern Wairoa Memorial Hall, partial reclad. Obviously, there was a reset on that. The redesign work is largely complete. So that includes a new toilet design for the municipal building, fire safety, accessibility, and Heritage New Zealand. So like I say, the design's pretty much complete. We're just adding in additional details for HVAC, electrical engineer, etc. So that's process is still underway, closing out that design. Then we'll do the update on the amended consent. Mangawhai Community Hub.
Oh, you just got a question here from Councillor.
While we're on the town hall, when's the demolition starting?
We obviously need to get the amended consent through and then we will tender for that. So we're yet to go to tender on that. So we're planning for the middle of the year though.
So through the chair, we're waiting on Heritage New Zealand to give us feedback. We can't progress with our tender until we've got approval and feedback from Heritage New Zealand. Unfortunately, Heritage New Zealand lost some staff and one of the staff that they lost was our key contact, and we're waiting Heritage New Zealand to hand our piece of work over to a new Heritage New Zealand representative so that we can get that sign off. Obviously, the municipal building's a heritage building and we can't touch it without that approval.
But did we not already have consent for the lobby, which touched the heritage building?
Correct, but we amended the consent to include toilets to keep the municipal building open.
So we're expecting midway through this year, June, July.
Correct.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So the date that was sent through midway through next year was, on some documentation that come through, was incorrect?
Yep, no, correct. We're hoping for Heritage New Zealand to get back to us as soon as humanly possible so we can tender and get that work done this calendar year.
Because there was a mention of midway through next year before the demolition would start.
No, that'll be an error, sorry.
Okay, cool. Beauty.
Through the chair, could an action be for one of a team to chase up Heritage New Zealand, press the urgency on this and really try and...
Yeah, absolutely. And just to
Get your
review, we do that on a almost daily basis. We're chasing them, yeah.
Thanks, Haley. Just carry on with the Mangawhai Community Hub. Obviously, there's ongoing discussion about that. Proposal is to utilise the remainder of the Better funding for the design work there. Pahi new wastewater disposal field, that's well underway. Tender's complete. We're proposing to start on the 20th of April on that project. The budget is a bit tight, but we're hoping we can achieve that. There's also additional funding coming into that project in the new financial year.
Sorry, through the chair. So what's your budget on that stormwater stuff for Pahi?
That's the wastewater.
Sorry.
Yeah. 300, I believe.
300.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually, I think it's about 287 or something like that. But it's under 3.
706, actually.
Numbers.
Very good. Timpai Wharf, obviously it's an ongoing discussion there. We've got a meeting arranged for next Wednesday, the 18th. So that's with the community board. And I believe the elected member working group, if you haven't been notified yet, you will be notified about that meeting. It's firmed up the date this morning.
Next Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, next Wednesday, the 18th. Yeah. Ahuroa Pine Beach wastewater treatment plant, we've progressed well there. Tenders have been confirmed. We've got an appointed contractor. The 6 pods have been delivered to site. We're just awaiting for the campground to empty out a little bit. That proposed start date is April the 20th. So that'll be underway very shortly. The lion's share of the work will be completed before the end of financial, but there'll be a little bit of a carryover past the end of June. We're also looking at upgrading the ablution block at Tahoe Domain at the same time, utilising residual funds from the day visitors toilet. There was a lot of media conversation over the holidays about the condition of that toilet block. So yeah, a well-deserved upgrade will be occurring there, not before time. Mungwhai Surf Beach car park, we're currently in the tender phase. We've had 7 contractors turn up for a site walkover last week, so that's promising. The budget is a bit constrained there. We're hoping for a good competitive result from the tenders, but we'll have to assess that when the tenders come in and possibly look at the scope or value engineer that project. Yeah, so we'll yet to be updated on that. Hopefully the tenders will come back with a nice keen price. Dargaville, Logan Street and Teedale Street water reticulation renewals. Now that's a district-wide water reticulation renewal. So it's 3 stages. So it's a multi-million-dollar project over 3 stages. Stage 1 has already started in Mangataroto, so that's currently underway. Stage 3 is where the budget constraint is on that one. And we're hoping to utilise some better off funding where Hayley's working hard with our representative there to get a reallocation of funding to support the 3rd stage and deliver that. So that scope will run out to the end of the calendar year. So it's quite a big scope over those 3 stages. Raupo Canal G, as you know, the main scope was completed some time ago. We've been working on a slump repair to the bank, which has now been completed. There will be a bit of an overspend on that updated approved budget. There's also been additional work needed to the cathodic protection, so the corrosion protection for the units there, because it's got steel sheet piling. We've had to put an additional corrosion protection for that. So recent testing resulted in that they need to reset the anodes, and they've recommended the additional anodes be also placed. So that's coming in, some more costs still coming in for that, but currently projecting at about 45,000 over the current approved budget.
Yeah. So through the chair, that was a $5 million floodgate. So I'm pretty happy that $45,000 is where we've ended up at the end. It's a fantastic news story, and I think that's what Jessie reported in her exceptions report to council whenever we were last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions?
Any other questions arising?
I have, but it's probably a different subject because it's going on to local waters done well. But when we look at the Kaiwi Lakes septic system, is that included in our parks, or will that be going to the new entity?
No, sorry, it's a part of the Premier Park and Reserve, so I think
stays with the parks and us.
It's correct.
Okay. Yeah, but if you have a look at Logan Street, that'll be going to the new entity, won't it?
Correct.
Okay, so yeah.
Yeah,
Just one question, if that's right. Where it says that the stage is at closure, how much more cost would we be expecting to be lumped on those jobs? So it's still waiting on bills to come in, or it's kind of done?
Most of the time we're waiting on final bills, and it'll be about 5% of what staff costs will be journaled in there as well. So some staff time will be journaled in, but it should be really the tail end. We weren't expecting large amounts of invoices to come in during the closure point. Just before I go, I thought I might touch on the projects by funding type attachment. So elected members have been asking for this information for a while, and I apologise it's taken so long. This is finances information, so it's not something that the PMO own. So if you do have any specific questions about the funding splits or the funding types that are in that list, I'm happy for you to ask me, but I'm going to rugby pass it onto the finance team. So you'll see that every single project through the long-term plan is assigned a funding source, but that doesn't follow the projects into the PMO. It sits with Sue's team in finance. So
Oh, I just heard Sue calling mine out.
yeah, Sue's hopeful that there's no questions, but if you do, I'm happy to take them and get a response for you from finance.
Councillor Williams.
Is it possible to get a group of activity, like that's kind of open spaces and it's wastewater, is it able to be put into the individual groups?
Yeah, if it goes across the pages.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, sorry. I
Yeah,
haven't looked at it. Oh,
So
then
those
it's
all
in-
repeats of what's in that.
Yeah, there's a full list
Okay.
and they're broken down by, portfolio. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Comprehensive document.
Okay, next up we have Joy with our fees and charges briefing. Thank you, Joy. Welcome.
Morning, Your Worship, councillors. My name's Joy and I'm bringing you the fees and charges for an annual review before and taking on some feedback from you before I bring them back to you at the next council meeting to get approval to send out for public consultation. So just as an introduction, I coordinate the fees and charges, I don't set them. So the activity managers do that. And they are guided by the revenue and finance policy. Any questions? Hello.
I see a lot of them they look to be around about a 3% rise. Is it just a general CPI adjustment for a lot of them?
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Are there any that have gone beyond the CPI rise where we've found that there's been a large gap or a large weakness or excess or?
Through the chair, no, there hasn't really been anything that's, there's been more the introduction of some new fees just through changes in legislation, but no particular large increases at all.
Thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
I was just wondering, it seems a bit funny that we don't charge anything when people just lose or destroy a library book. Should people not be taking responsibility for their things they buy? It's through the campaign for the replacement.
Through the chair, I'll just flick to that page. I know the libraries have joined what they call fees.
3 years ago, we, Kaipara District Council, went to 0 fees and charges, so we don't charge late fees or for renewals for books anymore. What we do is we just use our operating budgets so that we can make libraries more accessible for everyone to come.
Just thinking when people just lose them or not so much late fee. Because when I went to the library one day and someone came in and said, "Oh, there's this book. Sorry, it's my dog chewed it up." I was like,
And they've actually got it at home.
Yeah.
no, she gave the book back all chewed up.
We do find is that people will offer to pay if that's the case.
Okay.
But yeah, we don't pressure people to pay for books anymore.
Thanks, Hayley. So just to clarify that for the elected members, if someone borrows a book and doesn't bring it back and comes back in the next week to borrow another book, is there any limit on how many books they can borrow and not bring back before they can't borrow more books? Or can they just keep taking books endlessly with no penalty?
Them to their dog.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that process, but I can tell you that it will come up on their file and that the person at the counter that's serving them would remind them that they've got books outstanding. But yeah, we'll have to come back to you on what.
Yeah, it'd be good if we could get some clarity around that, because we can't just have endless budget allocated to people taking books and not bringing them back. There needs to be some threshold whereby the privilege is removed if comply in a reasonable way.
Chair,
Councillor Szymanski.
on the annual budget, there was 83,000 set as new books per year coming through. If some of these books, if all these books keep coming back, we're going to need bigger libraries.
Let's have that as an action point to go away from this briefing. Let's understand what we're actually doing in terms of having a reasonable policy. There's no point in us having a regime that costs more to recover than it's worth, but we need to have some boundaries in terms of what people get away with.
Is it a problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to say, being a student over 7 years, a lot of the time students were taking books. So when we're needing to access those books, a lot of them were taking them and just saying, for us, it was a major, especially for students trying to study. And our libraries are the only place or best place to source that information. It can be quite, yes.
Yeah, so it's not only the monetary side of things or the greed side of things for people who are doing that, it's a lack of access for people who need that service with those books disappearing.
It's not even necessarily a monetary or a greed thing. It could just be sloth. Can't be bothered. There's no penalty to not returning them, so why bother?
Exactly. Yeah. All right. If we could have that come back to us. Are there other questions for Joy relating to the fees and charges? And if not, thank you, Joy, and we will move on. Next up, we have Ruby, who's going to present an item on Kaipara signage replacements.
Good morning, Your Worship, elected members. Thanks for having me here today. I'm here to update elected members on the district-wide Welcome to Kaipara signage replacements and to show you the designs before we start work.
We got an amended document or something come through late?
There was a signage designs that were attached to the report.
Yes.
Appendix A to, okay.
Thank you.
Attachment A, yeah. So I took a paper for these signs to the Economic Development Committee meeting in June last year and then received feedback from there. And then I also took it to a council briefing just before the elections in around August last year as well. There's budget set aside for this project in the long-term plan. So we currently have entry signs in 6 places or 6 locations in Kaipara District. They are all slightly different in design. They're all blue, they're all have the KDC logo and they all have similar text on them. They're portrait long. There is one at the north entry on State Highway 1 and on the south entry. So that's south of Kaiwaka when you're coming from Auckland. And then there's one just by Atlas Quarries at the Brindewins. There's one at the north and south entry to Mangawhai on local roads. So that's Mangawhai Road and Cove Road. And then on this side of the coast, there's one on the entry to State Highway 14 at Tangataroria and one on the entry at State Highway 12. It's just past Proud Road on the Twin Coast Discovery Highway. We also currently have a smaller one at Murray Road in Tangawahine, and there isn't currently one on Paparoa Oakley Road, but many people consider that as a kind of secondary entry into the district. And we haven't actually budgeted for 2 signs on those roads in this budget, but it's something that we could consider if we can fit it in. This is what they look like at the moment. Not great, not in good nick. They're missing, they're damaged, the poles are there in a couple of places. That Brindewin one on the slide is actually not there any longer, so it's only poles like this one. Tangataroria. Yeah, that's right. You can see.
Some elected members put their campaign signs up on it.
I'm not sure what happened, Councillor Lambeth, but I think that the Brindewins one actually disappeared potentially during Cyclone Gabrielle. I'm not sure.
That's the real big one. That's just the top before you go to, because there's one that's also missing there, which had, I think, an image of,
The old carriage.
Oh, yeah, that's not, so that's not a council sign, that's for the Maternity Museum, I think.
okay.
Yeah.
Museum.
So that one,
Missing two,
It's missing too.
on the slide, there, the State Highway one, Brindleman's one isn't there. So that picture was taken a few years ago.
So that other one that isn't our sign. Okay, sorry.
No, it's not, yeah. But I know exactly the one you're talking about. Yeah, so what do we want the signs to do? We want them to create a sense of place for the district. We want them to enhance our tourism appeal. We want them to support economic development. They help make our district more recognisable. They make it more appealing, and they can also contribute to local business growth. They also improve navigation, so they assist in wayfinding, ensuring travellers know that they're entering a specific area. In this case, they're coming into Kaipara District, and they're here and they're welcome. So last year, the Economic Development Advisor and the Welcoming Communities Advisor worked on the Live brand, Visit, Live, Work, Invest website. And that was around supporting economic development and new residents to the district. That's been launched and it's been online for some time now. And the idea with the signage is that the signage is complementary to this. So it carries the brand through into the signage for the district. It means that we have a really clear connection for how we present and promote our area, both within the community and then also to the wider world. The sign designs you'll see use specific parts of the website brand design. So it has elements like the wave formation, the main colour themes, and the iconic kind of Kaipara district photo images to support Kaipara as the place to be. So these are the different text versions at the moment, which is what I will take direction from you in this briefing as to what we go with. But some of the other feedback was from elected members was just to see it with less text on it. So we have put up the one with Kaipara and the Kaipara district. And I guess there's just a couple of things to mention here. NZTA, I've already had multiple conversations with them because obviously these are on State Highway, and they've approved the signs in principle with all the most amount of text. So there's not any issues with that. And the staff and design feedback and advice would just be to include the welcoming words on the signs rather than just having Kaipara or Kaipara district, because it actually welcomes people into the area instead of just saying Kaipara, which feels or could come across as kind of cold and transactional.
Councillor Cantor.
Your worship. And so will each of the signs have a different picture?
Yes. That's,
and you're going to place the pictures for the area they're going into?
Yeah, so these are, I'll just show you go through the ones that we're looking at the moment. Obviously, we're just the text is TBC until I take the direction here today. But the idea is that first one there is for the southern entry on State Highway 1 at Kaiwaka South. The northern entry on State Highway 1 is the one that you see there of the harbour. The northern entry at Cove Road and Mangawhai is that really iconic image there. And the southern entry is also an image of Mangawhai there. And then we come across to this side, the Tangata one is Rapero Beach. And then the State Highway 12 entry on Twin Coast Discovery is Potor.
Cool.
And then I've just got a couple of basically what they look like.
Let's just do it all.
Is it the size of them?
Improvement.
It's just
a little picture.
So the size, yeah, they are 2,440 millimetres by 1,800 millimetres, and that size has also been approved in principle by NZTA.
So that's 2.2 metres by 1.8.
The same size?
Yeah.
Roughly? A bit bigger than that.
No, it's bigger than that.
Bigger than that.
Size of the wall. Oh, the TV, sorry. I thought that's what you're pointing at the slide.
Thanks, Ruby. I know that we had earlier conversations in the Economic Development Committee about it, and I think we came around to that point of saying, let's use the water in all of the.
That's right, yeah.
A lot of the places where you're driving, you don't actually see it. So it's advertising you're coming to. There's a lot of our state highway locations, you don't see the water.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Your Worship. We went with the images following the briefing feedback to only include water elements.
Just to help, see those glass panels over there, it's the same, they're going to the hall, it's 4 of those, 2 by 2.
Oh,
So that's the size of them.
that's, like that place.
Help you visualise, sorry.
Councillor Tani?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just in relation to the places where they'll be, has there been some thought about refreshing some of those places? I know you mentioned Proud Road, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
is that the most likely?
No, so I think I've had conversations with, last year before I took it to the council briefing, I had conversations with roading, the district plan team, to make sure that we had all the approvals and everything like that in place. And I worked with roading a little bit to maybe adjust some of those locations. So the Proud Road one is one that we would probably look to just push a little bit further up, closer towards the district boundary. Yeah, and we did go up and do a bit of a road trip to see where we could, because obviously it needs to be line of sight, it needs to be away from corners, it needs to stay in the road reserve, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so yes, that is one of the ones that we looked at adjusting. And also I think the southern entry one to Mangawhai, where we're going to move just a little bit further closer to the boundary, just to give it a clearer line of sight for that one as well.
Thank you.
Has there been any cooperation with the neighbouring councils for signs on the other side, or is it because we're on the way, we're going in on the lane, aren't we?
Yeah, it's coming into the district.
Yeah.
So yes, some other councils have farewell signs. Like I just saw one in Tangataroria, that's Whangarei District Council. Yeah, we haven't thought about those in this budget, but that could be a secondary phase of the district signage. Yeah, that we could look at.
Sorry, your supplier and printing and contains all the installation and everything.
That's correct. And district managed.
First sign sort of average?
It wasn't, the quote that I got was not for per sign, it was the overall cost. Was, well, our budget is around 40,000. So it's, yeah.
For six signs?
Yeah, for those 6 signs, yeah. For installation, printing, yeah, traffic management.
Councillor Nathan?
So I'm just wondering, like, once they're up, do we have our team just going and checking to make sure that the area is sort of clean and that we don't have weeds all up in the front of the signage? Is that something that the team does, or is that part of our roading team that would do that?
Well, the ones that are on State Highway, we don't have responsibility for that space. So I work with NZTA once we've determined the exact locations. Yeah.
Thinking of the maintenance side of.
It'd look nice if underneath was.
Yeah, sorry. Next minute, Councillor Nathan's there with the video there. Mind, everybody. High vis on.
So one quickly, what are they printed on?
ACM, which is aluminium composite material. Yeah.
Their expected lifespan?
I think that the ones that are missing or faded at the moment, I think that they were installed maybe in the early 2000s. I don't know, Your Worship, if you can recall. It's the.
Yeah, it's been there a long time. We need to last at least until simplifying local government reform has been concluded, so a couple of years.
Just go.
Okay, we're 25 minutes over time, so you want some feedback? I have a little bit of feedback to start with. I think that perhaps we just need to swap things around a little bit so that they are, some of the pictures are more related to being proximate. And, you know, you've got that great picture of Kaiwi. I'd rather have that closer to Kaiwi rather than all the way out at Popani. It's not really connected. So let's just have a look at how we can nuance that. I don't think we need to do that formally through here today. We'll have a conversation around how we might do that. In terms of the wording, my preference is to keep it simple. Road 100-kilometre roadside signs are better simple than cotted. So.
I know they like having the welcome, but I think the picture with the kaipara is actually having the most effect. like, especially when you see that, it's like, Cobra stands out, picture stands out. Little welcome to is fine, but yeah, I think, yeah, just a couple of those pictures, but, on the whole, the pictures particularly look really neat, really like them.
I'm happy with welcome to if you think that is more inviting than just the word, but you.
I think welcome to adds, yeah, you're welcoming people in.
Yeah.
I don't think we need district on there.
No, and I had thought about the logo as well, but I don't.
Yeah, because I was thinking there's no.
It's just, yeah, the point is to marry it in with the website, it's just that continuation, but I mean, obviously it's not on there to see how it would fit, but that was just, I think I made that point last time.
So if we don't exist after 2 years, it's still great business advertising for our area.
Maybe don't.
So don't think that it's
Maybe.
going to be gone and we're not serving the public after that. So to keep it very simple might be the way to go. I was adamant that they had to have the word district in. But that, like I said, that may not exist in 2 years, so it's area.
It's the Kaipara still has a strong identity and
Yeah.
you know, sense of belonging, you know, so let's keep that rolling
I
regardless.
don't think it's a waste of money. It's where we're doing something for the public and the business and.
Oh yeah, we need to update.
I do think it's pretty expensive though. Even 7K per sign. A couple of poles and a ACN boards are cheap. And basically it's just printing on top or whatever, but no, I mean.
But any business advertising, it's only 50% of your budget actually gets any results. And there's a famous saying, problem is we can never find out which 50% actually worked. And it's like that for any advertising. You never know what's going to go. And yeah.
I don't mind the advertising. I think that's fair and good. But yeah, I think when we're looking at total budgets through the whole seam of things and trying to keep rates down, we've still got to look at prices all the way through as well.
But when we compare it, sorry, we're having a bit of open discussion here,
We'll
but
move it on now.
when we compare it to those photos that you showed before of raggedy signs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we do need new signs. It does not a good look what we've currently got. We're going to move things on now. We're 30 minutes over time. So do you have anything else to add, Ruby, or can we?
Yeah, can I just confirm the direction that I'm getting today on the text? So I'm hearing that you're happy not to include district?
I'm happy with welcome to Kaipara, but.
Okay, and that's not it's just welcome to, it's not with the bilingual welcome to as well?
Haven't heard anyone say that.
Busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, sorry, your worship, I think having the bilingual one would be quite good, but it is a busy, I take Luke's point, it is a busy sort of thing. You want to keep things simple, but just like to add out there.
I think that comes to choosing between the bilingual and the district. If you're going to drop one, drop district. Just so you've got more of the picture and less.
I think we've discounted district already anyway.
Yeah.
I agree that the pictures.
I'd even want to bring that wave down slightly and get more of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we can adjust the wave a little bit, but it's.
You know, otherwise it takes the wave out, but there's a little bit of room to move there because I reckon those pictures.
We're wrapping it up.
I think we've landed, Ruby, on the majority view. Welcome to Kaipara.
Okay.
And you can tweak the wave and et cetera, but
Yeah, that's
it's the direction, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thanks. Right, we will break for lunch now and we'll come back at 12:20.